This is in a letter that's been seen by eNCA. The National Prosecuting Authority, the NPA, says a decision to prosecute those accused in the second docket, namely those who were in the house at the time of the murder of football star Senzo Meyiwa, will be made after the current trial has concluded. There is a current trial currently included of 5 accused who are accused to have been the people who carried out the shooting of Senzo Meyiwa, but there were people inside the house. If my recollection serves me right, there were 9 individuals there, including the girlfriend of the late Senzo Meyiwa at the time, singer Kelly Khumalo. But somebody who's following this story and tracking it for us, bringing us this development this hour, is my colleague, that's reporter Slindelo Masikane. Slindelo, good afternoon. Welcome to today, and thank you very much for your time. There's always something around this case. And let's remind our viewers that next week, Monday, is a resumption of the trial. Now, we are a week ahead, but stuff is happening. This letter, the NPA that is written, what is it?
Now, if I take you back, Bradan, you would remember in July when we took a break from the actual initial trial. The fact was that the defense, in particular Zandile Mshololo for accused number 5, wanted some clarity from the NPA as to what exactly is going on with this second docket. Namely, it's been named docket 375. That's the case number. This docket accuses those who were in the house of having a case to answer to, basically saying that there were no intruders and that those who were in the house, one of them shot Senzo Meyiwa. So what the defense is saying in this particular matter is that, look, we want clarity as to know what does the NPA plan on doing, because those who were in the house are going to be potential state witnesses in this trial, which is prosecuting docket 636, where we're seeing the 5 men accused. Mshololo had indicated to the court that I'm going to write to the NPA to get clarity as to these witnesses who are potentially accused as well. What's going to happen around that, and how does that affect my client? It seems that the NPA has written back to the defense. We've seen sight of this letter, which is actually going to be introduced in court next week. And what this letter basically says is that the NDPP has taken a decision to move docket 375 from the Johannesburg jurisdiction to Pretoria, but also adding that the DPP of the Pretoria division will be mandated to make a decision about what will happen with docket 375, but only after this particular trial concludes.
So this trial has to come to its conclusion first before they can talk or look into docket 375. But I understand you also spoke to Ms. Kelly Khumalo's lawyer. What did she say?
Of course, because it affects her client directly. I mean, if let's say the trial concludes and the state decides we're going to prosecute docket 375, then one of those accused is Kelly Khumalo. And what Magdalene Munsami has consistently said on behalf of her client is that her client wants her day in court. She says that it's not unusual to have such a decision made, but she also added that when we resume next week, they will be making an application to be able to be inside court on that watch brief. You'd remember back in the beginning stages of the trial, the defense had argued that the presence of Magdalene Munsami was going to basically taint the trial, and so she was kind of kicked out of court and having to watch proceedings online or on TV like the rest of the country. But she will be making an application to now come back into court. And she does say that with this particular decision, she just hopes that the state will be calling those who were in the house as soon as possible to testify. Let's take a listen.
The state needs to call the eyewitnesses with immediate effect, because the structure of the state's outline of the case to go to the investigation and then to go to the witnesses, almost, it's broadcast live. So for me, I would say that it is correct. If there are any flaws in the 636 docket, it is within the state's prerogative to then entertain or look at the strength of the 375, of which, Slee, I don't know if you've seen it, it's really not something that has got bearable consequences.
NPA decision, is it usual? Is it unusual? Or what have you heard from legal experts that you've spoken to?
I mean, we know the fact that there's 2 dockets is not usual in these kinds of cases. But what legal experts have been telling me is that it seems that the decision to, finalize this trial and then see what happens with it in order to make a decision on the other docket, the legal experts I've been talking to are saying that the NPA ideally should have combined these 2 dockets. Let's take a listen.
It is prejudicial to the state to have 2 separate trials. And the reason why it's prejudicial is you have all your witnesses in both cases testifying for a second time. So you can imagine you have, as an advocate or attorney representing the accused, would have a field day with the evidence tendered by your witnesses during the first trial, because that evidence is allowed in the second trial. So I can confront, if Slindelo is the key witness for the state in the first matter, then I can get the transcript of your evidence and I can confront you with that evidence in the second trial. So it's never advisable to do it, but the state has now done it. And unfortunately, they've now made their beds and they have to sleep in it.
Now, Slindelo, I understand you've also spoken to the families of accused number 1 to 4 who've also got an issue. Remember, they were represented by Advocate Tifo at the time, who then walked away in that dramatic fashion. So I don't know what they've told you. And when does this trial resume now?
So I've spoken to the families of the 4 accused. They've raised some concerns around the fact that they have noticed that Tifo, who withdrew from the case, is still speaking on their behalf. And they want to make a statement to say that they're distancing themselves from these letters, saying that they want the current lawyer, Titi Tobane, to continue with the matter. We also spoke to the Meyiwa family, in particular Senzo Meyiwa, who also wants to see the conclusion of this trial as soon as possible, because we know that he has maintained that these accused are being framed. He says, let this trial conclude so that we can actually get to the real trial. And we are expecting, of course, the trial to resume next week, Monday, Bradan, the 5th of September, with the cross-examination of the state's first witness to continue.
Thank you very much, Slindelo Masikane, there on the case of the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial. New development this afternoon. Of course, the main thing you must take out of it is that the NPA writing to one of the defense counsels, in this case, Mr. Mshololo, representing accused number 5, saying that docket number 375, or the so-called second docket, will have no bearing on this current trial. This current trial must finish first before that docket is then looked into by the North Gauteng High Court.